Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
I apologize for being a little bit behind schedule. I think there we go again. I think it's flash flood. If that's a tornado warning, would somebody please tell me? Again, apologies for being. Yeah, we had the pleasure this morning to visit Clinton High School, and we just are fresh off of a amazing performance from Attaché, and I recommended immediately after that we cancel the State Board of Education meeting, because how in the world, after such an energetic and exciting performance, could we possibly come in here and get through this? But we will. So obviously we are in a different location. We're at Clinton Public School District Building, 201 East Haven Drive in Clinton. This is our second time this year to move the State Board of Ed meeting. We're at Jackson Public Schools last month, so thank you to our host, Clinton, and folks who have helped us get here today. As a reminder, please silence all your cell phones, and that this board meeting is being live streamed. We would like to recognize our special guest, Dr. Tim Martin. I thought I saw him here a little bit earlier. He's in the room. Thank you. This is our superintendent here, local superintendent. And then Miss Paula DeYoung, board president. I saw her back there. How you doing? So again, thank you all for allowing us to use your facilities. I've asked Mr. Suggs to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance and Mrs. Altman to lead us in the invocation.
All right. Right here. Okay. I pledge allegiance
Join me in prayer, please. Our Father, we come to you on this stormy morning, thanking you for all our many blessings. We come with our hearts full, Lord, for what we've already seen this morning, for the work that's done with the young people in this community. We are ever so grateful for the people who devote and dedicate their lives to making sure that our children excel. We thank you for a community that supports them. We thank you for all of those who stand in the gap for these children when they need somebody. We pray that you'll be with us now as we deliberate the issues before us. We pray that we'll always be wise about the decisions that we make, keeping in mind that we are impacting school districts all across this state. We pray for those today, Lord, who are around the world taking care of us while we're here operating in a free environment. We pray that you'll go with us as we go through the remainder of this week, that we'll always do something that's pleasing with you, and that we'll always keep in mind that to make the difference in the life of a child is to touch the future. In thy name we pray, amen.
Amen. So great. Okay, you have the minutes before you. I need approval for those minutes and without any changes from April 11th. board meeting. There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, you also have the agenda here in front of you. Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda? If so, I'll entertain a motion to do so now. Mr. Franklin.
I'd like to add an item, please, sir.
Yep.
I'd like to have a discussion of the teacher salary issue.
Okay. Specifically
Specifically is the issue as to how we're gonna fund it, what's
Okay.
called, why we're where we are, and where we're going, and the solution and all.
Can I offer a suggestion? I'm going to address that in my superintendent's remarks.
But I'd like to
From-
have it as an item where we
Okay.
can ask questions,
Sure.
possibly make motions, et cetera. Please.
So it sounds like that's an action item that would be added as number 6. So I just would ask the staff to be prepared for that discussion. Teacher pay raise. All right, so there's a motion to add the teacher pay raise as an action item to the agenda. Is there a second? Okay, not hearing a second, the motion doesn't carry, or was not a vote to move forward with the motion. And again, we will talk about that in the state superintendent's comments.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to raise a point of order, please, sir.
Okay.
According to state board policies, and this is not the first time that I've failed to get a second, But it says a board member may request that any item which the member desires to be considered by the full board be placed on the agenda.
Yeah, I think it requires, if in the open session, to have a second. If you want to put something before the agenda's made public, we could do that.
I'm just saying, this is what it says, state board policy, description term, agenda.
I'm advised by council we have to have a second in this forum. If you want to add something to the agenda, we get the agenda a week before. Everybody sees the agenda. And at that time, if you want to add something before it's made public, which was yesterday, you certainly, any board member can add that. That's how I read that. But changing it after the public has seen the agenda requires a second. That's my reading of it. But again, I think once we get into the teacher pay raise issue with the state superintendent's report, we will, I'm sure, entertain any questions. So really just a formality. We will address that fully for sure. Okay, are there any items on the consent agenda that members would like to pull out for discussion? If so, I'll entertain a motion to do so now. Okay, so if there's no changes to the agenda, we will then move. Okay, so again, we have to formally adopt the agenda as published yesterday. Is there a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Now, we'll move to our recognition ceremony.
Good morning, Dr. Dean, Dr. Wright, and board members. It is now my honor to present to you the board recognitions for the month of May. Today, we honor a Clinton High School student and teacher and the MDE Employee of the Month. Our first honoree is Clark Hensley. Clark, please come forward and join Dr. Dean and Dr. Wright at the front of the room. While he's coming forward, I'll tell you a little bit about Clark. Clark, who is also a National Merit finalist, may look familiar because we recently honored him and other students who scored a perfect 36 composite score on the ACT. By the way, Clark earned a perfect score twice. He is the son of Adele and Frank Hensley, and his most recent accomplishment is being named Mississippi's top all-star scholar for 2019. Wow. He received this top recognition at the 54th Annual Education Celebration held by the Mississippi Economic Council's M.B. Swayze Education Foundation. The Mississippi Economic Council and its M.B. Swayze Foundation sponsors the Student Teacher Achievement Recognition, also known as STAR, program to encourage scholastic achievement among the state's high school students. The STAR program has two specific purposes. One, to emphasize scholastic excellence and encourage greater scholastic effort among Mississippi students. Two, recognition of the teaching profession. Clark, who plans to study computer science, received a $24,000 scholarship as part of the STAR recognition. Clark, congratulations on this outstanding achievement, and we wish you well in your future endeavors. You are welcome to make brief remarks at this time.
I'd just like to thank all of my teachers and administrators at the school, thank my parents for believing in me and for pushing me, my friends for believing in me, and thank you all for this honor. Awesome.
Our parents here, we would absolutely love to recognize them. Okay, thank you.
It's good, the same thing I was
We're
thinking.
having
All right, is that good? Well,
I can get over it.
it's a bit tough here.
Good. That'll work.
We'll just have to wait and get pictures later. We'll just keep going. Never mind, that's okay.
We'll do it.
Thank you.
At the break, for sure.
Yeah. Next, we honor Alex Davis Williams. Mrs. Williams, you may come forward. The STAR event not only recognized 342 STAR students, but also their STAR teachers. Each STAR student is asked to designate a STAR teacher. The teacher who has made the greatest contribution to to the student's scholastic achievement. Clark designated Mrs. Williams as his star teacher. Mrs. Williams, an AP English teacher, has been teaching for 24 years, and this is her 8th time to be named a star teacher. She received a $1,000 award for her recognition. Mrs. Williams, congratulations on your outstanding teaching career and receiving statewide recognition for your efforts multiple times. Thank you for your dedication to the profession and for having a profound impact on students. You are welcome to make remarks.
I do actually have some remarks. You don't tell a teacher that she has 3 minutes and not to expect to be, taught something. I have a few things to say. This recognition, of course, doesn't come without the students that I teach. And I promise you, everything that I'm going to say is all pancakes and syrup. And I do have a tendency to cry, but I'm going to try not to. All right. So, at this time, I would like to acknowledge the 8 students who named me as their star teacher. And they represent just a small fraction of the people that I've taught and loved over the years. And being here is a tribute to all of them. First, in 2001, was Millie Waring, who made me laugh every single day and loved chocolate chip cookies unashamedly. David Newman, who told me that reading A Prayer for Owen Meany taught him to be a better Jew. Spencer Bowley, who asked me one time if I was smart because of or in spite of the education that I'd received. Angie Rao, pianist and Girl Scout who loves Little Women, now turned medical resident. Jake Files, the keeper on the state championship soccer team and master of corny jokes. Jenny Loom, who was sometimes frustrated by my tendency to tell stories until she realized those stories were relevant to her life. Javarcier Ivory, whose mother was 18 when he was born, and he somehow managed to defy all the stereotypes. And finally, to Clark Hensley, who's standing here with me today. Now I really can't read with my glasses or without. Clark Hensley, who may be the most extraordinary human being I've ever met.
Oh.
Thank you both.
What a day.
I got it.
He's taking care of you. We're all taking care of each other.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for all the work you do.
This has turned out to be.
I know. We've gone from like an outstanding school performance by Ada Shea,
Yes.
and now this, I have to
Yeah, that's what we're doing, take a deep breath.
deep breath. Our final recognition for the day is the MDE Employee of the Month, Patrick Brown. He's the Technology Coordinator at the Mississippi School of the Arts. Patrick, please join Dr. Dean and Dr. Wright at the front of the room. This month's theme is innovation and creativity, and Patrick exemplifies both character traits. In fact, his supervisor says he has been an exceptional addition to the staff. He manages all technology needs on the campus as a department of one, but he has always approached his work in a professional manner with an intensity that is inspiring. Patrick has implemented new programming and technology ideas that have vastly improved the school's capabilities and efficiency. He consistently goes above and beyond to serve the needs of the entire campus and brings fresh ideas and energy to his role. Patrick, congratulations on being named the Employee of the Month. You're welcome to make remarks.
I just want to say thank you. We had our awards day just the other day, and I told everyone I'm here for the staff and the students. And, you know, I appreciate the State Board of Education, Dr. Wright, for what they do for Mississippi, what we all do. And, but I'm here for people like Miss Williams and Clark. You know, seeing them up here before me, I don't know, I couldn't get up here and replicate what they did, you know. But I work in my field for them. I've had plenty of opportunities to leave and go elsewhere, but I felt like Mississippi has given me so much, even my hometown. And so I decided to stay there 15 years, you know, and been 5 years at the School of the Arts, amazing place. You know, seeing students from all over the state want to come to a place and to receive an arts education and then disperse from there. We have some amazing students in Mississippi, and I see it every day. And so I just want to thank MDE, thank you, Dr. Wright, and the State Board for everything you've done, and Ms. Suzanne Hurst as well, my supervisor or executive director at MSA.
Thank you.
All right.
This concludes our recognitions for the month.
Okay, now we'll move to the report of the state superintendent.
Yes, thank you, and good morning. I'll start with the topic that was on Mr. Franklin's mind. It's been on a lot of people's minds as well, and that's the teacher pay raise. So let me kind of give you some context with this from the very beginning. In past, teacher pay raises have always been put in with the whole lump, I'm going to call it, of the MAEP funding. So when the MAEP dollars are calculated for each district, then there's the teacher pay raise that's calculated, and then the district gets one lump sum of state dollars. In working with superintendents on my superintendent's advisory, they were concerned that in the past they felt that there may not have been enough money included to cover the teacher pay raises, and that local districts were having to cover some of these fees on their own. So they asked if there was a way that we could work with the legislature to provide a line item for the teacher pay raise rather than the one lump sum of MAEP. So we worked with the legislature, and they were very cooperative about it. So that's how we got the line item for the teacher pay raise. And I know I'm going to be going into a little bit of the weeds, but you have to be in the weeds to understand exactly what's transpired. So when they said the first number they wanted was to tell us how many teachers you have. Well, obviously we have a total number of teachers, and we gave them that. And then it was, well, are any of these teachers federally funded? And it was, well, yeah, we do have federally funded teachers. Well, you're going to need to back those teachers out because we can't give state money for pay raises to federally funded teachers. And when we checked with our federal programs director, he said, oh, that's not a problem. That's what we've done in the past. The districts then, when they submit their federal application, which they have to do every single year to get their money, they just include the pay raise with that. So federally funded teachers were going to get pay raises just like state-funded teachers. So we pulled that number out, and we went with that number. And when the money was finalized and pushed out across the state, some of my superintendents started calling me and saying, I don't think this is right. I think we're missing some teachers. So we started talking to a lot of superintendents about which teachers and what teachers, et cetera. So as a team inside MDE, we even got on the phone with a group of my superintendent advisory committee and said, it was a conference call. We said, okay, walk me through then, because we were coming up with different numbers. So in our system, every teacher has a single-digit code, 0, 1, 2, up through 9. And based on that code, that lets you know where the funding source, so we thought, where the funding source was. So if you're coded as a 0, and Dr. Gavin, you correct me if I'm wrong on this, but if you're and Mr. Kramer, if you're coded as a 0, you're a state-funded teacher. If you're coded as a 1, you are title-funded teacher. And you get down to 5, and that it's called special services. So the assumption had been made that 5 with special services was special education, and everybody knows special education gets its own dollars from the federal government, hence more federally funded teachers. Only to find out that, hearing from superintendents, no, actually I pay for 8 of those special ed teachers with my funds. Well, Our MSIS system, which is the information system where we house all of this, does not have the capacity to know that. We know that there are teachers out there. We know by their code. We made an assumption that 5 was all special ed teachers. It is not. Because what we found happening when we all got back together again and started digging into this, about 10 or 15 years ago, somebody thought it would be a good idea, because not all the teachers were getting those single-digit codes, to attach a code to a course. So once you're a teacher and you're attached to a course, that course inside the system automatically defaulted to a single digit. Now, we had no way of knowing that. I mean, all we knew was that it was 0, 1, 2, whatever, because all of those decisions were way before anybody that's even currently at the department got there. So we then realized, well, it's an automatic default system. Well, then how are we going to determine which of these teachers are federally funded if we don't know an automatically for sure way to do it? So Dr. Gavin and Mr. Cramen got together and said, actually it was the whole team got together, but they're the ones currently really working on it, and said, let's push a document back out to the superintendents with the teachers and have them identify, because when I was on that conference call, the superintendents could say, yeah, I've got a teacher here that is 50% federally funded and 50% state funded. Well, there's no way we on our end would know that, because MSIS does not have the capability right now to do that. Now, we've pushed that out. All that information has now come back in, and now I've got Dr. Gavin's team and Mr. Cramen's team. In fact, I walked in on them the other day in a meeting trying to now say, how are we going to gather all this information up in order to make a final determination about the dollars? When we knew all of this was transpiring, we reached out to the speaker, we reached out to the lieutenant governor, we reached out to our ed chairs. All of them said, we got it, that's not an issue. When the legislature comes back in, we will have a deficit appropriation. Don't worry about that, just keep working on how to figure out so we don't have it happen again. So every year, and the board obviously knew, every year we have asked the legislature for money to upgrade our system. Our system is over 20 years old. Now, any of you that deal with technology, such as the gentleman from MS, you're probably shaking your head thinking, how is a state government agency running in 2019 on a 20-year-old system? So have we Band-Aided it? Absolutely. We've Band-Aided over Band-Aid over Band-Aid. And now, boom, you come here and you find out that this is now what we've got to capture, and there's no way right now that we can capture that. This past year, the legislature did give us $500,000. I was on Paul Gallo discussing this very thing, and number one, he said he had no idea, as a lot of people probably don't, that there are teachers that are federally funded. We have Title II dollars that we can use for reducing class size, and there's probably not a superintendent around that's not using some kind of title money for reducing class size. But we have no way of knowing that inside our system. So he says, well, is that going to cover it? Is that going to cover the fix? And I said, no, 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 no. You're talking seed money with $500,000. So I've asked Mr. Cramen, and so board members, you'll know, I've asked Mr. Cramen to put together a plan of what it would take in ever how many phases, with ever how many deliverables, and the costs associated with that. And he's going to be bringing that to you in June, so that you will know exactly what it's going to take for us to be able to capture this information. We obviously don't want something like this to happen again. There is nobody sitting on this dais or in this room that belongs to my team that intended for this to happen to begin with. So when you have something like this happen, I appreciated the people that picked up the phone and called and said, can you explain to me what's going on, versus those that just chose to say the very unkind things that were said in the newspaper. So yes, MDE can count, but however, it takes having accurate information in our data system in order to be able to produce an accurate number on the front end. So we are working with that. John's putting together a plan. Rest assured, I put out a press release. In my press release, I was very clear in my press release, and very purposeful in my press release, when I started with the sentence, "Let me be clear." Every teacher and every teacher's assistant is going to get their well-deserved pay raise. They're absolutely. If you're a state-funded teacher, you're going to get it with state dollars, and if you're a federally funded teacher or assistant, you're going to get it with federal dollars. So we are in the midst now of working on that internally, and we'll have a plan to you in June. That was another. I'm sorry. Did you say something? Okay. The other thing I wanted to let you know that's happened over the past month, we had our SLDS governing board, the state longitudinal data system that is housed at InSpark. There is a governing board by state statute that is required to meet to oversee the work of InSpark, and we met for the first time probably in over 18 months, and that followed a federal visit because the federal visit was strictly looking at our SLDS system. And when they took a look at the bylaws and realized that we weren't meeting, they said, you can't be doing that. If you want to adjust the bylaws, you got to adjust the bylaws. So I contacted the chair of the SLDS governing board and said, we really need to meet and we need to address what the federal government is saying the state longitudinal data system is supposed to be doing. That there are representatives from every agency on the state longitudinal data system. It's not just in Mississippi, or it's not just an MDE thing. So we are moving forward with trying to get more reports out from InSpark that will inform the field around post-secondary success, post-secondary attainment. We have lots of questions around if your kids go to college, how many of them are actually completing, and there's a lot of other states in the nation that are producing these reports on an ongoing basis. So that's something that we should be producing for all of our superintendents. What are their careers? What are their salaries? All of that kind of information is out there because we also need to know, are a lot of people going into careers that we may not be planning for? So that's going to guide our work in looking at our CTE programming and our pathways as well. Our teacher advisory council meetings, I've just finished with those. I've got a great story to tell you that one of the kindergarten teachers is there, made me think of you, Ms. Rye. At the end, because we're getting ready to do a campaign to share great stories around the state about positive things that are happening with teachers and why teachers chose to go into this profession. And one of the stories, the kindergarten teacher walked up and she goes, you won't believe this. She goes, I was so surprised the other day. She said, I had 14 of my seniors who had been in my kindergarten class show up at my doorstep. And they said, we want a picture with you because you took our picture when we first started and we want our picture with you now that our career in K-12 is over. And it was really cute. She said they wanted to go and sit the circle time and they wanted to do all the things that they had done as kindergarten teachers. But she was just so overwhelmed and so touched by it. And so it's those kinds of stories that we really need to share. We've got too many teachers around the state that are doing amazing, amazing things, and we really need to share that. And the last thing I'm going to share with you is my visit to Clinton High. So Dr. Martin was kind enough to allow me to come over and spend a half day. And I shadowed students through 2 inclusion classes, and I must say I was blown away. I started out in Algebra 1. So out of 20 students in Algebra 1, and that was in Heather McKinnon, is that McKinnon? Yeah, her class. 8 were students with disabilities, and let me just say this to you, you would have no idea which were the students with disabilities and which were the ones that were not. She has such amazing strategies for the kids to retain this information. And so she said, now don't let Dr. Wright tell you the answer. And I'm sitting there thinking, please don't call on me. You got to be looking for somebody else other than Dr. Wright to get that answer. But I went from that class to Laura Cockrell's class. She teaches English 2, and once again, or excuse me, English 1, once again an inclusion class. And both teachers using technology, students with their one-to-one laptops, everybody had their laptop out, you know, everything was just so amazingly engaging. Including, the Wendy Thrash was the inclusion teacher that was in the Algebra 1 class. But I've got to tell you, You also need to know, this was a day that all the kids knew was going to be what we call, I guess here, a 60% day, which means they were going to be dismissing early. You would never have known that these children were going to be getting out of school early. It was business as usual. It was going to class. It was staying engaged. You've got an amazing principal here and an amazing superintendent. And as we walked around when Tim was talking about the additions onto this school, his vision was, I want to bring these kids from the CTE Center here because I want children to see that CTE and its programming and its pathways are equally as important as an academic pathway. And there are academics that go with CTE. So that's his vision for this school. And as I walk back into my building, and your special ed director was so kind to give me an hour of her time, Chaffee Gibbs, and she's been here, I think, her entire career, she said. And the passion for children at Clinton is just, I just can't say enough about it. I walk back to parents whose children go here, and I said, you are so blessed to have a high school that has this atmosphere and this whole focus on making all children successful. So I'll stop there, but I do want to also, just before I go to Spotlight, I want to recognize both John Craman's team and Dr. Gavin's team for all the work that you have put in with this teacher pay raise, because I know this has been way hours beyond the ones that you put in, and I want to say thank you to your team, so please make sure you give my thoughts to both of your teams as well. And on another really high note, we're going to spotlight our very first early college high school. And it is the Golden Triangle Early College High School called GTEX. And it seems hard to believe that 4 years ago I gave the opening remarks for that school. And now here we have our first set of graduates. So it's exciting. It is a partnership that we have between not only us, but Mississippi State and East Mississippi Community College. We started with 60 freshmen, and now we have all 4 grades, and we're getting ready to graduate our first group. And this gives kids, obviously, the opportunity to earn college credit, and depending on their course of study, can earn an AA degree as well as a high school diploma by the time that they finish. And they're designed for students who may or may not have otherwise thought about attending college, but these students, almost half of them, are first-generation college-going children. So that, I thought, speaks volumes about it. You remember, we did a spotlight on them a long time ago, featuring 3 freshmen when the school opened. So today, we went back to GTEX and we interviewed those same 3 students to get a feeling for what they had to say. And you're going to be amazed, obviously, at how much they've grown and changed in 4 years. One of the seniors I happen to know because I know her dad well, and he said, I just can't believe it. He said she's turned into the star student. She's graduating with her AA degree. She's starting Mississippi State and majoring in microbiology. And he just could not be prouder of the opportunity. And these are opportunities for children that are happening across our state. And I think it's wonderful that we can celebrate that. So I'll turn it over to you to start our spotlight. Can we get the lights? Are those the lights?
We are a high school, just like any other public high school in Mississippi. The difference is students begin earning college credit as early as the 9th grade. So the goal is for our students to not only earn a high school diploma, but to earn an associate's degree from East Mississippi Community College as well. With our first group of students, we've really seen a level of maturity improve as they've moved from year to year. Their willingness to take accountability for their own learning and to advocate for themselves has been pretty amazing. You know, we've seen our students grow, but we've also grown as adults and as educators. And I think that through this process, we've learned a lot about ourselves as educators. And we try to learn something every single day, because the more we can learn, then the better we can serve our students.
Having college credit and being in the 9th grade, it makes me feel really successful because, you know, there's people who don't have that and they've already graduated high school. And it makes me feel encouraged to keep going and learn more.
I think the most difficult part about attending GTEX has been kind of watching the people I grew up with live a different kind of lifestyle from me. There's times where I miss my home high school a lot because I see like things I'm missing out on, they're really in the social scene and things like that. But I'm realizing that there is so much opportunity here. And I've come such a long way from when I entered as a freshman. And it's worth me getting my degree now because that means I can have time to live later. GTEX has prepared me for what's ahead so much. Definitely being inserted into the college scene early helped me a lot because I'm realizing my friends that I know that graduate high school now, they're in college, and they said it's so much different than what they expected. So me being exposed to it so early, I think was a blessing. And for life, it's definitely prepared me a lot. I've grown, and I feel like I know how to approach a new situation a lot better than I used to be able to.
So I feel like I could get a better education here and get finished with college early, have an early start. Going to high school on the college campus is very exciting. And like they give us a little freedom because they trust us. It's better here. Since coming to GTEX, I can say that I've become more determined, more confident in my studying, and I'm more driven. The most difficult thing about coming to GTEX is having to prioritize with your studying and meeting up with friends. You just have to mature early. The most rewarding part about coming here is that I'll be graduating at the age of 18 with a high school diploma and an associate's degree. Not many high school seniors can say that they've done it. It gave me a head start on college, and now I feel like I can take on the world.
Well, I decided to come to GTEX because I feel like it will be a great opportunity for me to get a head start on my career, which is an associate's degree, and because I want to be a veterinarian.
The most rewarding part for me has been the experience. I've learned things that I never would have learned back in my traditional high school. I've met people that I never would have met. I've learned life lessons from being in the classroom, from simply being at this school. I've learned things that I can take from school, take them home with me, and I can succeed more at home. I can succeed more out in the real world.
The students have surprised us because they have reached and stepped up to every challenge. They've accepted every challenge. We do things so differently here, and they really just embrace it. They didn't resist it very much at all, and they surprise us every day. The students they come to school and they embrace new challenges and new settings and new teachers, and it's a lot for a student their age to step into a college classroom setting at this time, and they surpass all of our expectations.
Wow. Oops, I got cut off.
30 college credits, 1,000 courses.
I'm so very appreciative of everyone who had anything to do with this program or anybody I've had contact with. Thank you so much.
I know, this has been, it's this time of year too, so I'll turn it over to you, Chair.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Mr. Franklin.
Can we ask questions now about the pay raise, Dr. that part?
Yes.
Okay. One is, from looking at IMSS, and we've had IMSS a long time, and we've had pay raises before and stuff. Why didn't this show up back then,
That's what I said earlier, because we had always put it in with MAEP.
MAEP, okay. Second thing, going forward, with all the political stuff and this type thing, and who's going to be there in January and who's not, how do we fund that so that maybe, and I'm going to ask a direct question, do you have enough money, or could you, out of your budget, fund the first half of the year so that the districts don't have to do that.
The districts aren't going to have to worry about that. We've already calculated the amount of money that is going out to the districts with the pay raise, and they will have more than enough money to pay for that up until and even really quite past the legislative session. But we have been assured by both the Speaker and the Lieutenant Governor that there will be a deficit appropriation.
See, the Lieutenant Governor may not be there, so that's my concern. And the other thing is, with MSIS, what about all the MAEP funding and stuff? Are you confident that that's being done correctly?
Oh,
and
yeah,
the accountability results?
Yeah, that's something we have control over. This was all, we do the calculation for MAEP is double-checked by an accounting firm, so all of that we know is accurate. We know what we're pushing out is accurate, and what we don't have is the funding source, which is the money part of it with the pay raise. The accountability model has nothing to do with that other part of what we're not capturing. That's a totally different set of programs altogether.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. First of all, back to the GTECs, is that what we call it?
GTEC?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Man, so just to underscore, 39 Mississippi high school students got a high school degree and an associate's degree through this program. I mean, that's a vision that's been around for a long time, and I'm sure there's other examples of it, but to be coordinated and organized around it, that's an amazing thing. You talk about giving our students a step in the right direction right out of the gates. That's an amazing example. We would certainly love to see that to be replicated and scaled across this state. That's really important. So just a couple of things on my report. I had an opportunity. I was invited to go by and visit Midtown Charter School, public charter school, a couple of weeks ago. The new principal, Kevin Parkinson, escorted us around, spent about an hour there just doing amazing things in a really challenging education environment. But he laid out a strategic plan and definitely is motivated and fired up, and look forward to the results of that effort. On I guess kind of a personal note, I went yesterday to Madison Middle School, where my 8th grader goes. They were taking their state test yesterday, and I volunteered as a hall monitor. And boy, I didn't get any kind of special treatment. No cell phones, no talking, escort kids to the bathrooms. I spent 2 hours doing that, and just wanted to acknowledge the fact that our schools across the state right now are going through the testing cycle, and we're pulling for you. And we know that you guys are doing great things. They're taking it very, very seriously, and that was good to see. And just kind of one comment back to this process of amending the agenda. Want to speak to that, and for the other board members to hear it. If there's further discussion on this, we can have a talk. But we get the agenda emailed along with this a week before this meeting, and it's our duty and responsibility to go through that. When I was appointed to the board, I read the manual and I asked a lot of questions of our Assistant Attorney General at that time about how do you amend the agenda, and my impression was you as a board member can add to the agenda, through that period that you have it before it becomes public, which is at noon the day before. And at that point, then it's a public document. And the way I read my other handy dandy book here, Robert's Rules of Order, you need a motion and a second and a simple majority to change the agenda at that time. So, if there's some differences of that, I'm certainly open-minded to it, but I see my role as chair is to manage the process and to interpret it the way that I see. So if there's ever any changes to the agenda in advance of it being publicly presented, that's a conversation that could be had. So that's all that I have for my report. I think we've got a couple of interesting subcommittee reports to get to. Dr. Kelly, I'll turn to you first on School Performance and Accountability Subcommittee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before I start my report, I'd like to put it in context. Almost a year ago now, this board made a conscious decision that student voices were important to the process in our decision-making, and elected to start a process of getting student representative on the state board. There has been a subcommittee working on this. Sonia and her staff has been working very hard at making sure the process moved forward. Mr. Bailey, Ms. Altman, and I made up a part of the subcommittee as the board's representation. We started off with 37 students from across the state that applied, that had an interest in doing this. We narrowed it, there was a committee that narrowed it down to 8. I reported that to you the last time. Since then, the 3 of us have had the pleasure, and it's been an absolute pleasure, of interviewing those 8 students to come to what we know now as finalists. And yesterday, we finished up the process of electing 4 finalists. The 4 finalists will come to this board for a final interview at our July meeting. And they will be interviewed by the full board, and that decision about who those 2 students will be, one will be a rising junior, another will be a rising senior that will be chosen. Now, if I can get a drum roll, I'll tell you who the finalists are that will be actually interviewed by this board. Megan Gamashay. Megan is from West Jasper School District, and she, of course, is a rising junior. The second rising junior is Omar Jamel. Omar is from the DeSoto County School District. Rising seniors, the 2 rising seniors that will be interviewed, Shelby Dean. Shelby is from the Clinton School District. The second rising junior is Alvin Jones Jr., and Alvin is from East Jasper Consolidated School District. Those are the 4 people that will be interviewed by the full board, and from those 4, we will choose 2 to sit on the state board, and they will actually be seated with the board starting at our July board meeting. But there's more good news. We have made a recommendation to Dr. Wright that all of the semifinalists will make up the composition of a student advisory committee, a superintendent student advisory committee. She has graciously and was really excited about doing that. So all of the semifinalists will be on that group, but she's also said that she wants other students from throughout the state to serve on that advisory school district. Student voices are so important. You know, after going through Clinton this morning, I've decided I want to go back to high school. So if you all decide that I can enroll, I want to be a freshman again. Mr. Chairman, that's my report.
That's awesome. I really like
Sing and dance.
I'll sing and dance. You know, my first degree was in voice. I was a music major, so I was pretty excited this morning.
Well, we didn't know that. Your
I was
first degree's
pretty
a
excited
voice,
this
huh?
morning. I was
This might
pretty
have some
excited.
future.
We
Okay.
might let you sing the national anthem or something.
I don't know about that.
All right, Dr. Elam, Educator Quality Subcommittee.
Yes, Mrs. Rye and myself met yesterday with Dr. Murphy and Mrs. Cormack. And we, well, the principal thing was to bring us up to speed on the licensure changes that will be coming before the board at the June meeting. We reviewed those and agreed with what they're going to recommend at the June meeting. They also told us about the Elevate conference that's coming up. It's Elevate Conference for Teachers. This was conducted last year for the first time, and more monies have been, how I don't know, but found that they've been able to increase the enrollment to 800 max. They already have 640 attendees registered for this. The conference is not until July. You might want to make note, it's July 8th and 9th at the Jackson Conference Center. But what the OTL group plans to do now is they have about 150 remaining spots, and they're going to seek out getting recent graduates, in other words, graduates that graduated in May that are teachers, getting them to the conference so that they can begin the mentoring process of these new students. This is like a first step, but trying to incorporate them into the teaching profession very early on, that they feel comfortable around other teachers. And then finally, I just want to give a shout out to Dr. Murphy. Unfortunately, he's traveling today, so he's not here. But I think the board should recognize that Dr. Murphy really went, in my opinion, above and beyond in helping the department by seeking out at ETS, our testing agency, to provide free of charge vouchers for praxis testing of all the students who are going to be in the residency pilot program and the performance-based licensure pilot. This is, quite a cost savings for all these students and will allow them to take the test and not worry about the payments for that. Also, which is, I think that's really great, but also Dr. Murphy was able to gain from ETS for them to train, I think it's 16 people from Mississippi on how to provide instruction to teachers on how to take the praxis test. I mean, you can know a lot and sometimes you've never really been taught how to take an exam. And so I think this is a wonderful step forward that they will then come back to Mississippi and be able to teach other instructors how to teach new grads how to take the test. So Dr. Murphy is very, very modest. So I just felt like that he needs some recognition from the board for going a step beyond and above that, and using, now granted, he once worked for ETS, and we all know contacts are everything, but he used that influence on our behalf. And I will also point out that Mississippi is ETS's first group to bring in for giving this instruction to how to teach to take the praxis test. So, sorry he's not here, though, can't applaud him.
Man, thank you so much to both our subcommittee chairs for the work that you're doing. I mean, that's really fantastic and shows, the ability to really get things done when we got to focus like you guys have, and appreciate that and look forward to the June interview with those 4 finalists and moving forward with their beginning here on the state board in July. We have one information item I want to try and cover before we break for lunch. It's the middle school initiative, Dr. Oakley, and then we'll talk about when we reconvene.
While Talon's getting us set, I want to say thank you. What we're going to talk about this morning for just a minute is what we're looking at doing, particularly in the middle grades. As a board over the last 5-7 years, we've done a lot of work in elementary with the Early Learning Collaborative Act, with the Literacy-Based Promotion Act, and on the secondary side with advanced placement, with diploma endorsement options, dual credit, and the accountability model, career tech efforts that are underway. And so we had this kind of gap in the middle where we knew there were some challenges to address with that middle grades age student. And so I'm going to give you kind of highlights today that I previously shared with the academic subcommittee of where we're looking at going. So in your green folder on your table, if you're interested in picking that up, there's a PowerPoint as well as just a portrait of a middle school student. And really we've designed this around not just the academic learning for students, but their ability to advocate for their own education, the questions they ought to be asking and the way they ought to be growing and developing socially, emotionally, and then what we want them to become. So the fun little graphics there with the picture of the student gives you a sense in summary of what we'll walk through in the PowerPoint. And this does very closely connect to the vision, mission, and goals of you as a state board, particularly as we look at students growing in those middle grades from year to year and ultimately graduating ready for post-secondary education or through tech programs, military service, and other opportunities. So a task force led by Dana Bullard and other secondary education staff, Dana has really spearheaded this, worked over the last 18 months or so with a group of educators from across the state to really lay out their vision for what a middle school student ought to look like. And so we've kind of put into this PowerPoint what are those characteristics of these particular students. We want them to be fluent readers. We want them to be ready for high school mathematics content, to be able to express themselves not only in writing, but in the way that they speak and talk and share through technology. And then using all of these skills ultimately to learn new things, because those middle school that middle school is foundational content for high school and beyond. We want those students to recognize not only their own needs, but the needs of those around them within their larger school context. We heard this morning at Clinton High School, from the time they come into school, we are all Clinton arrows, right? There's this sense of community there. And so we want the students to be aware of that as they advocate for themselves and as they grow academically and socially. And then ultimately, we want them to understand the connections between what they learn in middle school and the decisions they make academically, the application of themselves to their course content, and their outcomes down the road. The work that they put in their middle grades will have a great impact on how prepared they are for college entry exams, for high school advanced placement courses, for post-secondary study. And then to really encourage them to think about what they want to be down the road. As a 7th or 8th grader, I certainly did not know. There are days now that I don't know what I want to be when I grow up. Maybe I want to go back to high school. Maybe I want to go back to college. But ultimately, we want them to recognize those connections and to look at the relationship between their learning now and their future success. We're looking at supports for teachers in this area as we continue to roll out professional development across the state, but particularly targeting the teachers with those same kind of concepts around the academic piece with curriculum, the advocacy or the asking piece for students with self-advocacy for building that self-advocacy within their students, and then what they want to become or what they want their students to become as we look at college and career expectations. We are going to be releasing a pilot application later today for districts that are interested in participating in the coming year. We're looking at a 2-year cycle, but we're looking at pulling in about 20 middle schools from across the state that will be working together in networked improvement communities. There'll be some extensive professional development for teachers and supports for them and regional meetings across the state. And then ultimately, as we move into next summer, looking at a broader statewide rollout of additional professional development and supports for this middle grades age of students. Be glad to take any questions you got at this time.
Questions?
Yay.
Thank you.
Great work. Okay. We are going to take a break and reconvene at 1. We are very fortunate that Clinton High School's culinary arts students are providing us lunch, and I've been nearly moved to tears several times today, but I will cry over some food. So we will take a break, and when we come back at 1 o'clock, we will resume our agenda. reconvene here. I'll ask Dr. Vanderford if you're prepared to please come. Number 2 is important. It's important on our agenda. It's an action item: approval to revise business rules of the Mississippi Statewide Accountability System effective 18-19 school year and thereafter. Dr. Vanderford.
Good afternoon. When your mail-out information was provided to you, we had provided the comments that had been received up until that time, prior to the deadline. And then on Monday...
And I'm sorry to interrupt you. I was told by our IT assistant to please talk directly into the microphone. They're having trouble picking up what we're saying. Thank you.
And then on Monday, you were provided all of the comments...
If you can you get the wire?
That were submitted, as well as a summary chart. Now, the comments, there were some comments that we did not provide to the board that were submitted after the 5 o'clock deadline on April 30th, so those were not in your packet. And as you looked through your backup material that had the actual comments, if you compared that to the summary chart, there were a few that were off topic that were not included in your summary. So just as a reminder, with the background information, you approved the APA process to begin in March on the 28th at your meeting. And the purpose of the revisions were to revise the business rules related to the assignment of performance classifications for school configurations, of non-traditional high school configurations, some revisions to the acceleration component, some revisions to the EL component, and then to add the section to the alternative career and technical center that's related to the child development centers, as well as some other general updates. So during the APA process, we received over 40 comments. Probably half were in favor and half not in favor. And again, there were some that were off topic. So it's a little hard to give you a definite count because even some of the comments that were in favor of or opposed might have had some mixed in it that had a comment or two that was in favor. In general, the comments, I'll just give you a summary of the proposed changes. And the comments that were not in favor dealt with timing, the acceleration component, some issues around the concerns around the EL component, and then the other revisions were primarily related, those that were opposed to some changes in the graduation calculations that was a direct result of ESSA, and us adding the business rule that outlines the percentile ranks, at what percentile the cuts are drawn when the cuts are established. As a result of the changes, as a result of the APA process, we are not recommending any changes to the business rules, and we ask that you approve them as presented to you in March for the majority of the business rules to be effective for the 18-19 school year, and there are some revisions related to the dual credit piece of the courses as well as a weighting. That would have been an unfair advantage had we introduced that in the 18-19 accountability season, so those will be delayed until 19-20.
Now go over that again. What's being delayed?
So in the within the acceleration component, there were some proposed revisions related to dual credit courses. Right. One would be that the dual credit courses that would count for both performance and participation in the model would come from an approved list, and the other being that would be a non-weighted course grade that would be received directly from the community colleges. And so since the districts did not have advance notice of that prior to the start of the school year, we recommended that not go into effect until the next school year.
Dr. Kelly?
I'm wondering if there may have been some confusion in the field about when this was to be rolled out. The communication that we got from superintendents, almost unanimously, the ones that did speak to us and sent us correspondence saying that they didn't like changing the rules in the middle of the year. And this is not what we're proposing at all.
So there's two areas that we've been working on for over a year that we felt we were very transparent with the field as well as the task force in looking at the K-12 configuration, which turned into the non-traditional configuration, as well as the commitment that we made last year to look at the methodology for the EL component. So when the Accountability Task Force began work during the school year, that was the intent all along, to make revisions to those business rules and for them to go into effect for the 18-19 school year. And so if you recall, when we provided the information to you in March, and we have copies of that if you would like to revisit it, we provided you the impact data of all of the changes that we're proposing related to the acceleration component, the EL component, and the non-traditional high school configurations. And the data, the impact data based on 17-18 indicates that no school is negatively impacted and that the advantage is to all schools and districts, whether you be high performing or low performing.
Mr. Franklin.
When I went through all of these things, and if I counted correctly, there were like 42 plus, 2 or 3, give or take, letters that we received.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that's not, and some of them had multiple
That's correct.
concerns and so forth. So with that many concerns, what is that, how should we, one, there were some things, and let me run down these. The first thing that I saw was Dr. Kelly had the same thing I did. One of the things that was pretty much, and I tried to say, okay, what are the common themes? One was that we not implement this year. But, and I'm going to make some comments in here that'll be random, but like sitting in those meetings with the task force, I can't tell you how impressed I was. I tried to tell you that. I'll tell you again. That was an excellent experience. Those folks had an understanding. They dealt with it on a day-to-day basis out there, and their recommendations, they agonized, went back and forth, and tried to just reach consensus on these things instead of really dragging it out and this type of thing. And what they're recommending, looking at the letters that we got, there's the folks that would like to see some changes to those. And I've tried to see both sides of the thing, but one of them was that the thing about percentiles, now that may not be it. Was that not out there for?
I
One
guess-
was that if we go, when we look at changing cut scores and all, we revert back to the percentiles, and that just throws everything into chaos. How do we get some clarification and that type of thing? That was one that was out there a number of times.
So Rule 1.1.1, I think, is actually where it was added. When we gave you the category of other, that was just general updates or areas that would address technical issues or clarify language or remove some obsolete language. Every time the cuts are reestablished, we field numerous phone calls from the field asking, where do I find that information that an A cut is at the 90th percentile and that an F cut is at the 14th percentile? So rather than refer them back to the standard setting document or to the board meeting from 2016 where the board approved that, we felt that it would provide clarity for that information to be in one place within the business rules. And so that's the rationale that we had for inserting that. Obviously created some confusion, and a lot of the comments that came back opposed brought up the whole concern that we're very aware of, that the field or some stakeholders do not like the methodology of the percentile rank used to establish the cuts. So a lot of if you read all of your comments, a lot of that is throughout, but that's not what was out for APA at this time.
Okay, so that'll not be a part of the vote today then? That one's not?
That's correct, because it's
Okay.
no recommended changes. I mean, unless you just want us to remove from 1.1.1, because that was just an insertion for clarity so that the information is all in the business
Before
rules.
you, just to be clear, nobody's talking about changing cut scores. You're just simply
That's correct.
clarifying.
That's correct.
And I think that's the insidious sort of messaging that can get
Right.
out there. Nobody's talking about changing cut scores. Nobody's talking about changing cut scores. Nobody.
All right, number 2 was that it seemed to me like there was almost, it wasn't unanimous because everybody didn't respond to it, but I did not see anybody that was opposed to making the, with the task force's recommendation around those non-traditional, I call it attendance centers.
That's correct.
It's like everybody approves that. And here's a question on that. That would be effective this year, right?
That's correct.
Because an aside is, a lot of folks said, like Dr. Kelly, again, just don't change 3 or 4 weeks before the end of the year, But y'all, we've been talking about that one a long time.
For a year and a half or 2
My
years.
thing is, if we can,
publicly.
whatever we do with the others, but let's make that effective as soon as possible, because those folks have been, okay. Number 3 I had was the acceleration component. And there was a lot of discussion about that on both sides, and I know the committee wrestled with that. And the advantages and disadvantages at some, in the smaller rural and the poor districts, the cost of AP versus that type thing. And the only IB there's only 2 or 3 schools in the state that have IB programs, and we're setting up a weight thing there. So there's pros and cons that I saw on the acceleration component. And then the EL component, multiple things there that they felt like that what we'd done was we'd gone from where that those folks who didn't have the end count kind of had an advantage to where now, with the task force's recommendation, that those who do have the end count would have an advantage. And that was kind of prevalent across the thing there, which is, and I know they wrestle with that a great deal, on the committee. And then some other comments were, about changing ESSA, and on that EL number, changing the EL number from 10 to a higher number because the feds will allow us to go up to 30. Now, my thing that I want to leave my comments on is this. One is the work that's been done, to me, is a darn good start. But I would hope that we wouldn't say, the race is over. And I'm going to make a suggestion that maybe, could we keep that task force together, those folks, and let them continue to look at these things? And now that they've had a chance, or they will have a chance, to see what the concerns are out there in the community, to continue to look at our model and see where that leads us to.
So we've had a task force that has met annually ever since this model was developed. But the members on that task force serve for 1 school year. So we are in the process. There'll be another task force meeting toward the end of May. And following that meeting, we'll distribute the information to the school districts for those that would like to participate and be recommended to serve on the task force for the upcoming school year. So it will not be the same individuals that make up.
Could we not make a motion and pass that we keep that same group?
This has been our practice. Our practice every year has been to give other stakeholders an opportunity to participate in this effort. And we've changed to task force every single year that we've been here, but still involving all the stakeholders that are out there. There's a lot of people that want to serve. So our idea was just make sure we get enough people that have an interest, and those people that have an interest apply, and then we select a task force.
Yeah, I'll speak up. I think there was
We had around 280 applicants this past year. And of course, I'm sure a lot of those people will apply again next year.
But the task force continues to meet. It's just different makeups.
That's right. They've met for.
Okay, other questions or comments?
Just for my education, if you've served once, can you apply again?
Yes, sir.
And you can get selected again?
Yes,
Has
sir.
that happened?
There's been members that
Okay.
have served more than 1 year.
Thanks.
Okay. And I want to make one other commendation. From what I'd heard through the year was, that this was probably the most transparent effort and with the use of the task force and you guys advertising the meetings and the whole shooting match. So, thank y'all for that. And I've said that to you before, so.
Okay. Hearing no other comments, I'll ask for a motion for approval to revise business rules of Mississippi statewide accountability system effective for school year 18-19 and thereafter. Need a motion and a second.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Motion?
Second.
With the second, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. We'll move on to item 3. Dr. Gavin, approval of Mississippi Department of Education contracts 3A, B, C, D, E, F, and G.
Okay, all of our contracts this morning are renewals. We have no new contracts. These are all renewals from last year. Items A through E are all contract workers. Renewal of contract workers, A through E. Item F it's also renewal. It's our various milk distributors contracts. And item G is to renew contracts with our ice cream distributors. And item F and G, of course, are no cost to the state.
Okay, any questions for Dr. Gavin on the contracts? Ms.
Just
Franklin.
a quickie, Dr. Gavin, on F and G, they don't have any cost down there. Is that something we need to be concerned about, or?
No, those are our contracts with the district. We're just a third party.
Other questions? Okay, so I won't read each of these. We'll just say, under the Office of Chief Operations Officer, do I have a motion to approve items 3A, B, C, D, E, F, and G? Need a motion.
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We'll move to number 4 here on our agenda, approval of Mississippi Department of Education grant awards. Dr. Gavin.
Okay, we have 3 items coming before you for approval for grants. Item A is to award competitive grants for K-8 STEM initiative. Item B is approval of grant awards for the school nurse intervention grants. And the last item is our 21st Century Grant Award.
Questions?
I have a question on 4C, please, ma'am. And this is an excellent program to benefit children outside the school and so forth. Looks to me like that's a lot of money for only 7 agencies to be awarded. Did you have others that applied, or?
We did have others to apply. It was a competitive process, and that is for 3 years. But those were the 7 that met the court's cut score.
Other questions? Okay. Under Office of Chief Operations Officer, do I have a motion to approve items 4A, B, and C?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We're on action item 5, Dr. Vanford. Determination by the Mississippi Board of Education to officially abolish the Humphreys County School District and Yazoo City Municipal School District.
So behind your item 5, you have the 2 statutes, the one for the Achievement School District as well as the statute related to the abolishment of the school district. Were some questions that were raised regarding abolishment in a district of transformation versus the Achievement School District. And as you know, with transformation, the board may abolish, and then the abolishment becomes effective the date that the governor, or contingent upon, and becomes effective the date that the governor signs the declaration of the state of emergency. With this statute, it says it shall abolish, but when we took action, or when the board took action, I'm sorry, last month to have these 2 districts placed in the Achievement School District, we did not take the action to officially abolish with an effective date. So this is just coming back to you with an effective date. The law says they shall be abolished in accordance with 371713 that you have, but we want to be clear that it's an effective date of June the 1st.
Questions? Thank you.
I have one.
Yes, sir.
And it does not relate so much to the abolishment, but for Dr. Wright, when is the new superintendent of Achievement School District getting started?
He already is.
He's already-
We had a small contract with him to get him into the state and to start working with those communities. He's been holding community meetings this week. He's met with staff, he's met with the existing superintendents, and his official contract will start May 15. But we felt that June 1 would make more sense. The school year would end, it would cause less disruption. This is also in the middle of testing, and so we felt that way. He's still working with all those people and moving forward. He's already hit the ground running.
Thank you.
When are we going to have the opportunity to meet him?
Oh, well, we can have him at the June meeting. Absolutely, happy to.
Be here.
No? Oh, well, we'll take his picture and send it to
I'll
you.
meet him via conference call. I'm going to phone in.
There you go. Yeah, we'll have him at the June meeting so you can see him. He's really
excited.
been very excited, and the communities have been very welcoming, so.
That's what I heard.
Yeah.
Yes.
Under the Office of Chief Accountability Officer, do I have a motion to approve item 5?
So moved.
Motion?
Second.
With the second, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
All right.
No.
One no. Okay, under consent agenda, do I have a motion to approve items A, B, C, D, E, F, and G?
So moved.
There's a motion with the second.
Second.
With the second, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, moving right along. We do have one item for executive session. Do we have a motion?
I move the board consider making an closed determination of the need to go into executive session.
We have a motion with the second.
Second.
Okay, motion to move into executive session. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Please clear the room. During executive session, the board moved to approve the appointment of Education Bureau Manager to serve as as Director of District and School Performance. That was our only item in executive session. Okay. Report, we're moving to 11 here, report on meetings attended. I would just say, Dr. Kelly and I had the opportunity to go to the NASB meeting in Washington, D.C., the legislative conference. Very great experience. Dr. Kelly had the opportunity to present on our work in moving forward with the student representative. I was asked to discuss rural equity as a panel presentation, so definitely a great professional development experience. We traveled to the Hill and talked about a lot of the Higher Ed Act provisions that are coming up, and reaffirmed our commitment to early childhood education and as ESSA continues to be developed and moving forward with those. So good meeting. Any other meetings to report on? All right. Do we need to approve attendance of any upcoming meetings? Okay. Not hearing any, I'll keep moving. I'm sorry.
I have a NASB new members orientation coming up in June, but I don't have the date, so it'd probably be safe to go on and ask for approval to go to that.
I know it's June 15th. I know, because I can't be there.
Okay.
Yep, that's that weekend, 14th.
Do we have a board meeting before then?
Well, that's what we're going to, it's the Wednesday and Thursday the week before. So we moved it, so, okay. All right, but you should have in your material somewhere,
This starts with July.
I think it's 11 and 12.
I got it right here.
Yeah, it's the 11th, the 12th and the 13th.
I got it right here.
Yeah, 12th and the 13th.
Okay, 12th and the 13th.
Well, the 12th is your budget meeting in the
Right.
afternoon, and then the interviews, I believe, with the morning, and then the 13th is your regular meeting.
Correct. So we are a week earlier than originally publicly published, which brings us to the next point. We need approval of the meeting dates for fiscal 2020. You should have in your packets these. Of course, we reserve the right to move around as it dictates, but I need a motion to approve these meeting dates for fiscal 2020.
So moved.
There's a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. These will be published. Okay, now the point about I knew this was coming up. So in other business, the State Board of Education will have a work session for the semifinalist interviews for Student Board Representative and fiscal year 2020 budget meeting on June 12, 2019 in Jackson, Mississippi at the Central High School building starting at 8:30 a.m. The June board meeting will be held on June 13th, 2019 in Jackson, Mississippi at the Central High School building starting at 10 a.m. I know Dr. Elam and potentially Ms. Rye are not available.
I won't be here either.
Okay, that's 3. So are we're bordering on.
I can do it by teleconference.
Okay.
So I
Okay.
can still vote.
If we anticipate, we'll get this clear, but if we anticipate we have a quorum issue, we will have time to reestablish a date, potentially 2 weeks from that time. We'll have to see. Okay.
And your budget, did
Yep.
you your budget work session?
Yes.
Okay.
Sonia, do I have any other announcements? I feel like I did.
Had training, they'll be getting an email about that.
Okay.
Had board software.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
training,
We had asked, again, we asked last time to please move our meetings to iPad presentation and look into it because of that. So we look forward to an update on that. Okay, no other business, so we.
You do realize these meetings will be twice as long? Because of everybody trying to figure out where they are.
We might need some training.
Mr.
Okay.
Chairman,
Yes, sir.
how many conflicts did we have for the June board meeting?
Dr. Elam can call in, but I know that's going to be not a hassle, but it's going to take some doing because she's several time zones out.
So you really just have 2?
Well, and then Mr. Suggs might be.
Yeah, I'm in Japan the first week in June, but I think I'm back in time. I'm just going, as soon as my phone cut on, I'll confirm.
We will affirm that we have quorum. If not, then, we'll have plenty of public notice if we need to move it to a week before, 2 weeks thereafter. Okay. No other business? Is
I
there
move we adjourn.
motion to adjourn? Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.